Beautiful people. Happy Thursday. I am so excited to spend a few minutes with you today. I just have to mute my YouTube channel so I don't hear myself. Listen, we had some fun in studio down there in San Francisco. I was just watching Izzy and Brittany create those amazing designs. Well done, team. We're going to shift gears and talk a little bit about social media today. As you know, our show, Social Media Makeover, is lately it's been Instagram focused. We've picked a different vertical of Instagram to kind of tackle. Lucas and I have said it before. This series really is almost like a course. It builds on itself. We haven't had the chance to focus on Instagram stories, but that is exactly what we are doing today. And so I mentioned his name, my dear friend Lucas. Normally he'd pop up on screen by now, but he's actually delivering a keynote right now in California at a big marketing conference. But don't you worry, we found a way to involve him. This is his strategy, his story, literally strategy, that I'm going to be working through with you today. So, my ask for all my kind friends that are hanging out with us live, I need you to be especially interactive today because it's just me and it's just you, honey. So, I really hope that you treat this hour that we have together as like a little workshop session, a little live kind of workshopping session. Stories for me are my very favorite vertical of Instagram. And I find them the easiest to show up on. I find them the easiest to make high impact. I get a little bit stuck on like reels and things like that. I tend to overthink it, and we've talked about that. But I hope that with the framework and the structure that we're going to teach you today, you're going to find this especially useful. So I'm going to share my screen. What we're looking at on screen now is the IG Story Planner. This is a remixable template that we have linked to in the description of this show. This is what our dear friend Lucas calls the story method. And we've taken each letter, STORY, and broken it down into almost like a grouping or a category of how you can think about stories in a way that's really just conducive to being able to show up. So we'll spend this hour going through each of the initials. I say, let's start with the S. And to explain what S stands for, I'm going to throw to our dear friend, Lucas.
Well, today is all about stories and strategies you can use to stay consistent and really create a story content strategy that isn't unlike your actual main feed content strategy. Instagram and many other social media platforms today are giving us all these different channels to show up on. And if you're not using them, you're not maximizing the output and the reach that you could be getting from these platforms. Now, of course, we're all human. We do tons of different things in a day. And for many, speaking personally right here, showing up in just main feed content, whether it's carousel posts, single feed posts, or reels every day or even a handful of times a week, it's already a lot of work to begin with. So what we're going to be looking at today to really frame the topic is what I call the story framework for creating stories. And it uses those 5 letters, STORY, and it's going to help you with some stories that you can show up with every single day, 5 days out of 7 weekdays. And I'm going to be sharing the order, and it's not stuck to STORY. You don't have to stick with the precise order. It's just a fancy acronym, so you'll be able to remember it. And the good news that I want to pair with this, the kind of strategy that's shaping all of it, is that most users, I'm speaking personally, but I've also had the chance to chat with tons of other creators who have found very similar results. Most creators are finding that just posting one story per day has been the way to go if you want to maximize the reach on those stories. I always give an important disclaimer here, and that is that if you already have really good cadence and connection with your audience by showing multiple stories, sharing a lot of content, sharing behind the scenes, talking on video to your audience, if you already have an audience that expects that from you, don't shift to this once per day strategy just because I'm saying it and other people are saying it. As we always know, whatever is specifically working for you and your audience, you want to go forward with that. But if you fall in the same category as me, Phil, I know you probably feel the same way, where your story views have just been down, then this is a great way to have consistency, to get some great reach on those stories, and to make sure you're showing up. So, with all that being said, let's get into the first letter, S, of the story framework. And S stands for showcase. The point here is that there's really no better format on Instagram than stories for showcasing your products, your services, your offer. So, once per week, create a story that is going to showcase how someone can work with you, something they can buy from you, or if you're like me and you like to work with brands and have a lot of brand deals and brand partnerships, this is a great time to highlight those brands. So, S is for showcase. What are some stories you can create that showcase how people can work with you and or support your business?
My gosh, he is so good at explaining things, even when he's not here physically to join in on the fun of designing. Lucas, there's a few things that he explained there that I want all of us to think about. And friends, I'm checking the chat. I see you, Voodoo Val, my girl. A Perva is here. I see Ryan. Oh, we got the whole crew. I really want you, as we're moving through the material today, I prepared a little bit for this, but I also didn't over prepare because I feel like that reflects how we should approach stories. Lucas explained, I think, some really important things there. He has found, and he's talked to a lot of people, that creators tend to get more impact posting once a day. Okay. And the framework that we're giving you, right, can be giving you this really just as a parameter to follow. So I immediately think about, okay, showcase. We want to share our work. We want to remind people what we sell. Showing here on my screen, I've been busy updating portfolio projects on my website. I'm horrified to say that I have 50, this is so embarrassing. I have 50 projects, branding projects that I need to add to my website. And I'm showing you one. This is Ashley Hahn, a business coach. In fact, she hired me to do her brand, and she is my business coach. So we've done some new mock-ups here, some new visuals. So I thought for this S, this showcase, why not use something like this as the basis for our Instagram stories? So, friends, as we think about showcasing our brand, what we sell, what we offer, please do me a favor and don't overthink this. I almost want you to set a timer, which is basically what I'm going to do right now. We're not going to work on this for more than 10 minutes before we move on to the next initial. But I've just created a blank canvas here in this same project. I'm going to go ahead and upload some of these images that are from my website that we created. Okay, I love this one as a starting point. So as you think about showing up for stories once a day, or sorry, once a week, you could be thinking, what project do I have? Either a new one that I've recently completed. Let's set the background here. So this is an image actually that we created in, I think it was Photoshop. Um, what I love is that yes, I can open it in Photoshop, pass it through as a linked asset um, to Express, or I can just work from the image. And we want to think, okay, the size that I'm working with here is like a little bit different because we're creating for vertical. So I'm taking this kind of mood board style a visual, and I'm going to just quickly pop in another image here and think about how can I use some of these assets, that looks really cool, to create an Instagram story. I want you, in most cases, working from something that already exists, right? If you're having to do all of this manual work right now from scratch, you're not going to do it. But our whole mission today is how do we work with what we already have? If we have 10 minutes on the calendar, how can we create something to show up on Instagram, be it a new project or an old project? Friends, one of the biggest themes right now on Instagram is repetition. Creators, I've got a lot of clients that are creators. They're all saying this. Phil, I can't believe I reposted the same post, just adjusting the crop here. Okay, this canvas size is 1080 by 1950. And we think, well, what would we do in Express versus what we would do directly in Instagram? We'll talk about that in the minutes that we have together. But a lot of times this is going to be like a two-step process. So what I've done just now, adjusted this image. I thought the six that we had was it was just a little too many. Um, if I wanted, I could, recrop it and move the layout. But in this case, I'm just going to leave a little blank spot here to be able to add text directly in Instagram. If I wanted to add, let's say, a logo or let's say her word mark, let's find that, pop in this one. Again, these are just assets that have already been created for my website that I'm taking few extra seconds. I know that's small on the screen. I'm going to increase it. Few extra seconds to just reformat projects that already exist. Chat, tell me. A Purvis says 10 minutes. My mini Photoshop works takes me an hour. Friends, in the chat, tell me one thing right now that you could create in 10 minutes an Instagram story out of. Let's say three slides. I've already finished one. I'm going to go ahead and create, let's duplicate it quickly because I like this background color. Okay. I'm going to work from the same folder. That's nice and bright and beautiful. Love this logo that we created for this project is actually a few years old, and I'm horrified to admit that it's taken me almost 3 years to get this onto my website. But not only am I going to get it onto my website, but I'm going to create an Instagram story out of it because we can't assume that everyone knows what you do for a living. And guess what? Even if they know what you do for a living, they like the reminder. I was telling you this story. I got sidetracked because I'm just talking to myself. But repetition on Instagram is key. So when you post something, my friend Liz Mosley in our Adobe Live family actually gave me this tip. When she does a post, say a carousel, she schedules it in Adobe Express. We'll tackle that at the end. Well, actually, I could show you it now. We could go click share. We could click share to social. I typically post live, so I may have to re-authenticate my account, but I would do that right up here. Give it a second to load. What Liz does is she'll duplicate this post or save as draft, add this draft to your calendar, and we'll click here to view it. I'll go back to this in a moment. But what Liz will do is she'll click this, save it as a draft, but don't give it a date. So just clear the date, okay? Click save. And then you're going to see this little icon over here. And what this means is you've duplicated what could be a story, but now I could come back and turn this into a carousel, turn it into an Instagram reel. But this is Liz's way of remembering, here's my content that should have at least 3 different lives, if that makes sense, right? So my content's first life today is on Instagram stories, and I'm using literally pre-existing assets. I'm not taking the time to create all kinds of custom assets in Express because, honey, I got a lot on my to-do list. You do too. And so the whole kind of first theme here as we tackle this idea of showcase, I did it in less than 10 minutes. I did 2 slides. Let's see if I can do 3 very, very, very quickly. Let's pop in just one more. I like this one, looks cool. This little button looks cool. Let's do this one. And what we could actually do, friends, when you're making stories, a really good idea is to have people interact with your design. Oh my God, do you see how bad I am at like talking and doing at the same time? I feel like Adobe Live makes us an expert at that. What we could do right here, so it's just the images, I could download this and I could add a sticker right in the middle that has people, drag the slider. It might have people vote. Do you like the top or the bottom? And you could put the little arrows. If we have time, we'll actually do that today. I'll download this into my folder. We'll drag it over. But friends, the first theme today is showcase. Focus on sharing your work. It could be new work. It could be old work. It could be reminding us what you sell. Just because you posted once doesn't mean you can't post it again. In fact, you should post it or some kind of version of it every single week. What project do you have? What project do you offer? What do you want to highlight? How will you present it? Lucas gave you some ideas here behind the scenes. Give us a sneak peek of something you might be working on. It's not just the thing, it's the story around the thing. And I'm hopeful that this first little S in our acronym, story, gave you some ideas. A Purvis says, I think I have 5,000 plus short poems on Twitter, never reused. Friend, Apurva, I want you to take 1 day a week on Instagram and I want you to designate it as Poem Day. And what I would love for you to do is share one of those amazing poems that live over on Twitter or X, give them a new life over on Instagram. I urge you to not create something from scratch because you don't have time for it. Use something that already exists. Okay, I'm keeping an eye on the chat. Val says a throwback post, reusing my old paintings. Val, what is so cool about that? Yes, you're a graphic designer, you're a creative, but showing us your paintings, showing us your creativity, it reminds us your brain, your work, your art. Even if it's not something you're selling, bring us into the fold on how you do what you do. That's a theme we'll touch on in a second. Is everyone feeling good about S? If so, we're going to move on to T. And to explain the T, I'm going to throw to our friend Lucas.
All right, we are moving on to the letter T in our story framework, which I'll repeat often. And of course, we have that awesome template that you can use in Adobe Express to help you plan out every step of the story framework for planning stories. But we are on to my favorite, the second step, which is T is for teach. And this one is simple. You're going to take your story, take that daily story where you're showing up, and you're going to share a mini tutorial or a mini lesson. Teach something to your audience. This could be a video like you're seeing me do right now, where you're recording something and just talking to the camera. Or again, if you're looking for a faster story to create and you are finding, like me, that photo-based stories or image graphic design based stories are performing better in terms of reach than videos, you can just point to the screen, show something on camera, and put some text that's breaking down a process or a tutorial that your audience is going to find value from. This is really good because if you make it Teaching Tuesdays or something like that, where they know what to expect and what day of the week to expect it, you're going to see people tuning in, almost like it's a scheduled program. Just like how this show right now is a scheduled program. And we're seeing our amazing audience come back every week and build on the stuff we're teaching in terms of your Instagram strategy. So T is for teach. What is something you can teach nice and quick to your audience to give them that value?
Lucas with the T, but not the T because it stands for teach. And he said it himself. This is his favorite initial. I would say it's probably mine or maybe the one that's coming up next, which is O. But let's spend a few minutes on this because I feel like especially with our audience, our creative pros that are hanging out with us or watching the replay, friends, you teach on a daily basis, working with clients, explaining to them why you make the decisions you do on screen. I'm hopping over to where my mind goes. It's funny because with Lucas, he does those videos where he's doing the pointing, right? I bet he's got a whole patch of those on his phone. I don't really do that, the like teaching, but I like it. But for some reason, my brain doesn't think like that. But my version of teaching would be workshops, presentations. Ever since presentations launched in Adobe Express, this has been my main domain. I just went full screen with my slides. I love that I can add these little animations, right? This is a literal presentation that I've delivered. And friends, what a perfect opportunity. Again, not to start from scratch, because if you're starting from scratch, you're never going to start. What a perfect opportunity to repurpose content that already exists for Instagram stories. So in this case, I'm going to just take this presentation that I have delivered. It's created in Adobe Express. I don't even really remember what's in here. It's been a little while since I delivered this, but let's take a look. Yeah, I have 3 kind of golden rules. You may or may not know, I published a book in January called AI for Small Business. And the book actually talks a lot about Adobe Express and a lot about Adobe Firefly. These are platforms I use and advocate for because they're safe for commercial use, specifically Firefly, right? I'm able to create imagery in this platform that I or my clients can use safely and not worry about a lawsuit. These are the types of things that matter. So what I'm going to do, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to borrow some of these elements from a presentation Phil, how are you going to do that? I'm just going to unlock some of these elements. Um, if you're ever clicking on something and it doesn't allow you to click on it and you go, why can't I click it? There's a good chance that that layer is locked. And I do that for templates. If you're creating templates for your clients, it might make sense to lock some of these assets. But there's a few ways I could do this. I could actually resize this asset, but because I'm working in a different project, I'm just going to go over to that project right here and I'm going to paste. I copied my slide assets, okay? And I'm literally just going to um, let's just delete that one. I'm just going to rework the layout of some of these. So let's just grab the layout. Actually, I'm going to keep this on brand for Phil. So let me borrow this hex code from this project, hop back over, and under custom, or under background, custom background color, I'm going to pop this into place. So friends, while I'm reformatting here and adjusting the layout and design, Penny says, yay, Phil, congrats on the book. Thank you, Penny. I want to know from you, what is one thing you could teach? What is one thing you could teach? I need you to be extra interactive today so that it's not just me talking to myself. Friends, I know that it seems like so simple, but the fact that I can um, copy and paste between projects in Express is like the greatest thing in the world, right? This came from a presentation, a totally different project. You can literally just copy and paste it. So I might center this or I might put this a little bit higher. That doesn't look centered to me. Now it does. Those guides appear and help us. It used to be that I would do these things in Photoshop or Illustrator, something like this I would do in Illustrator. And I'll still open some of those Creative Pro apps for some of this stuff. But friends, when you get used to Express and how quickly you can do some of these things, especially if you are repurposing content from another project, right? You'll find that you can do things so quickly. Um, you'll notice that this is not centered. This is another instance where this is going on stories. I'm probably going to delete my handle. Unnecessary. Instagram's going to show my handle in the interface, right? So not necessary. Golden rule, I could maybe leave that. But what I also might want to do is add an element, add something on screen, right? Directly in Instagram. Okay. So I also might want to add some text. There's some belief. Obviously, I would have to save this now as an image, right? As a PNG or as a JPEG. But if I bring this over to my phone, actually, let me do that. Let me just open my Finder window. I'm going to airdrop it in record speed, friends. Record speed, record speed. Here we go. Airdropping. It's going to pop up on my phone, which you're going to see right over here. Okay. So I'm going to go back to Instagram. Look how high tech we are today. Pop in that design, which we just made over in Express. What I want you thinking about is, okay, step one, what can I create in Express with that high design, that branded moment? But what are the things that I might want to add directly into Instagram for ease, for interaction? I'm going to hold on this moment right here. It was so stressful when Instagram redesigned these. It was like, I can't find anything. And I feel like they're constantly adding things. I don't know what the WhatsApp button does. Maybe creates a WhatsApp chat. I don't know. Never used it. But there's a few here that I want to point out specifically for stories that I think are really important. Okay. Something like this slider, giving your audience something to do and something to slide. Let's do a robot. It's right there because we're talking about AI. So my golden rule is, friends, this applies for you too. If you feel like you don't, you're starting to dabble with AI, using Adobe Express is certainly giving you a front row seat into meaningful and important integration of AI. You're not behind. Don't worry. If you're not using ChatGPT for all your stuff, don't worry. You are not behind. Okay. Even though the robot doesn't lend itself to a function, having something on screen for people to interact with will improve the performance of your stories. Let me say it again. Having something on screen like this for people to interact with, whether it's a slider, whether it is a, what am I looking for? I know I stare at the screen and I'm like, where's the thing? Where's the thing? This is another good one. Okay. We're not going to obviously add all of these. I usually choose one. This could be like clapping if you agree, but give people something to do on screen. There's a voting one that I'm looking for. What is the voting one called again? Why am I not seeing it? I don't know. Poll, that's it. Poll, poll, poll. So I could ask a question, or you can just leave that blank. But sometimes I'll do like arrow, okay, point up, and then I'll add another arrow. Arrow, point down. Remember I mentioned earlier if you were voting on something, we could put this smack in the middle and put the image that you create in Adobe Express top and bottom. Friends, let people have an opinion, let them weigh in with their thoughts. That is going to help you in a major way in terms of actually just getting visibility on these stories that you're working hard to create. Going back to the chat, here we go. Penny says, sticker making. I sell stickers on Etsy. So, Penny, I want you to not only show us the stickers, but I want you to show us the process of creating those stickers top to bottom. Show us how you start, how you finish. Penny, I want you to get input from your audience on which sticker they like, A or B. Our dear friend Ted Chin is a master at having you vote on version 1 or version 2 of his amazing AI art. He's such an artist. He is the master. Go look at Ted's Little Dream. He does an amazing job of having us vote. Do you think he wants your opinion? He might, but he wants you to interact with his story on the feed and in stories, right? He wants you to interact with his post, I should say, in stories and in feed, because it helps the performance, not just for vanity, it helps more people see the amazing work that you create. So, Penny, that's my advice to you. Keeping my eye on the chat. I think if you're feeling good about the teaching moment, let's keep going. I'm going to throw to our friend Lucas, who's going to explain O, which I think is my favorite one.
Isn't it so easy to keep track of things when you turn it into an acronym? So we're on to step 3 of our story framework, which is the letter O. And O in this case is for open up. And for many people, this is what stories have always been about. O for open up just means share something personal. Maybe it's a story about your business. Maybe it's just something about your personal everyday life that's going to be relatable. Post it, take a picture, put it on your stories, ask a question, see how your audience can relate to you, and give them those opportunities to reply to you in the DMs and reach out or strike up a conversation. We all know that whenever someone is DMing you and having conversations in the DMs that are starting from the stories, they're usually going to see your content on the main feed more often. So, O for open up. These stories are really good conversation starters with your audience.
Oh my gosh, it's time to open up. I told you that this was my favorite one. Lucas did a really excellent explanation of this. So back over on my screen where you can see the remixable template. By the way, friends, if you're joining live, I'll take 5 extra seconds to just show you what we're working from today. This is our remixable template linked in the description of this video, Instagram Story Planner. We explain what all the initials are. We're about halfway. That's why, in case you join live, I'm going to show you what we're working from. STORY. We have it's an acronym. It stands for something that you can almost designate as a day of the week. The day doesn't matter. Designate it. We've gone through showcasing. We've gone through teaching. And now we're talking about opening up. This can be work related. It can also be not work related. I'm going to hop over to Instagram now where I have clicked open one of my highlights. Okay. So on my actual Instagram feed, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I went to Turkey several years ago. And if I swipe over, it's this highlight, this second highlight right in the middle with the little hot air balloon. I went to Turkey with my partner and was so focused on creating or like booking this hot air balloon tour in Cappadocia. Anyone been to Turkey, by the way, in the comments or in the chat? Let me know. You've been to Turkey. We were so excited about this opportunity to go in the air, but The weather has to be absolutely perfect. So I created a story while I was there. And this is my best performing Instagram story in history. This happened 3 years ago, and people still bring it up almost, I wouldn't say every week, but definitely once a month. I tell the story, which has nothing to do with branding or, social media or AI. I tell the story. You arrive at 4 a.m. This thing was scrubbed multiple times, which means they cancel it. The weather has to be absolutely perfect to go up in the air. And I was very focused on the logistics of this trip that as the balloon started to take off, I remembered that I am deeply afraid of heights. Deeply afraid of heights. And this was a terrible idea. But what am I going to do? Jump out? I had to stick with it. And this was so vulnerable and so embarrassing. And it was horrifying. But I thought in this moment, God, I bet other people are going to laugh at this. And they certainly did. So I'm just showing you like some of the moments. This is the face I made that was like, I do not want to be here. And you see what I was talking about before, the little slide over, let people have a chance to laugh. I got thousands and thousands and thousands of views on this story, but then also replays because mostly laughing at me. That's having he thought it was hilarious. I didn't take that video. I was literally crouched in the corner of this air balloon. That was my view. I was hiding. I was like, make this thing end. This is the most horrible experience of my life. I'm deathly afraid of heights. There was that little window that was haunting me the whole time. Like I wanted to just like pretend I was somewhere else, but it was like wind on my face. Horrible. Has anyone been in a hot air balloon? Oh my God, it was just awful. Anyways, friends, I tell you that story. If you want to see the full the full story, you can check my highlight, which I've saved now for years on Instagram because people still ask about it. The moment I went in a hot air balloon, that is definitely an example of oh. And again, it has absolutely nothing to do with my brand. Um, Voodoo says it's funny now because the footage. Phil is so not chill. You're right. I'm normally a very chill person, and I am not chill in a hot air balloon. Friends, why do people go in a hot air balloon? Like, who thought it was a good idea to put an open flame with a canvas balloon that you're floating around in 3,000 feet in the air? Make it make sense. It still doesn't make sense to me. If you're wondering if I've ever been back in a hot air balloon, the answer is no. The answer will always be no, unless I'm physically forced into one. Not a good experience. But a good experience in the context of Instagram stories because I was able to share this vulnerability. I know from my work with clients building their brands, a lot of times when they're getting their photos taken, they're like, oh, I don't think the photo shoot went well. I felt very, very vulnerable. Guess what? Inventory, self awareness. This is key for personal branding. Any of the moments where you feel vulnerable are typically the best stories. They're the best moments and nuggets of gold where you can connect with another person. Okay. And so share those stories. I want you to use this template. It's what we created for. What we created it for. There's these little boxes down here so you could copy this, right? We could do, hot air balloon. In a previous episode of Social Media Makeover, we did a storyboarding. I think it was episode 2. No, it was episode 3. It was one of those. Lucas uses actually the. Let me go over here to the elements. And where is the draw feature? I never use it. So that's why I actually don't know where it is. Stumped me. It's somewhere over here. You can actually draw in Express. Where is it? It's over here somewhere. I'm sure you guys know. Anyways, you can click this and you can actually draw and do little sketches. I don't use the draw feature, but what I use a lot are shapes. So if we go over here to shapes, there it is, draw shape. That's where I was trying to go. So friends, let me do that slower. Elements over here, shapes. I typically work with like pre-existing shapes, but Lucas loves this one where you can actually like draw. That's me. Kinda. Oop, now you can tell I'm not an artist. Penny, I'm not making stickers that anyone's gonna buy. When we're done, we click done, and that's our little asset. But it doesn't have to be perfect. So a recent example actually where someone was using the draw tool to create structure reference in Firefly. Such a good idea. You don't have to be Picasso to be able to create these or to be able to illustrate an idea. that then could inform the AI. If we have time, we'll tackle that a little bit later. But I want to keep moving on. Is everyone good with O? You heard the story about me in a hot air balloon. You can go check the highlight on my Instagram. If you're good, I'm good. Let's continue moving on. I'm trying to keep us on time here. Let's move on to R. R is next.
We're on to step 4, STOR, and R in the story framework is for react. If you see my content, you know that I love teach, so I love the letter T in this framework, but I also love to share news, and that's what R for react is all about. You're going to share a story that reacts to industry news or anything going on in your audience overall. What's something that's going to be interesting to them that maybe they haven't heard about yet? This is a great chance to share other posts and then give your own commentary, or to turn an exciting piece of content that you've seen or news that you've seen into something like a checklist or a summary or your own mini editorial. So somebody who wants to know the news, they can just get the scoop direct from you. These are great for reactions. Again, these are great for starting conversations. And maybe you're doing a main feed post or a reel where you talk about this news. This story can supplement that and add on to it. Anything that didn't make it into the main post, put it into the story. So R is for react.
That is R. It stands for react. Thank you, Lucas. I like this one. This is one that I actually tend to forget about, but it's a
We're
really
on to
valuable
step
one,
4.
especially when there are things happening in the world. And, you certainly, whether you have the same opinion or a different opinion, this is an opportunity to have a conversation and to start a dialogue. So, react, I like how Lucas describes this. Share and react to some trending news in your industry, topics, news, articles, resharing a post, and he gives an engagement idea. How will you invite viewers to share their opinion with you? That's something I do love to do. Let's do something fun. You'll know that I often work between Adobe Express and ChatGPT. ChatGPT tends to be the most like generally available AI text-based tool. So I work from here. I use it for a lot of projects and content. So I'm actually going to ask it a question that I encourage you, if you use the same ChatGPT account, um, I want you to ask it this prompt. So I'm working on an Instagram story where I can react to current events or news. Help me find 5 newsworthy articles or events to react to related to my industry. Let's see if it gets it. ChatGPT should know by now that I work in branding, that I work in AI. Okay. These are all great ones. All great ones. So you want to, I could also go to Google, but I'm not necessarily as clear what I would type into Google. You could maybe go and filter by news, but I find myself using AI tools a lot to help resurface some of this stuff. And so this is an interesting one. There was another one that I thought of that I found interesting. Like, I don't actually know, like, this is not auto relief for automakers. That's not in my industry. AI. So I think it's a little off. So what do you know about me, Phil Palin? These don't feel on target. Find 10 more. But I'm asking, tell me what you know about me. Yeah, okay, good. There we go. This is better. So friends, you don't always have to take the first result you get from AI. A lot of times, like if the first result is bad, that's just the start of the conversation. This applies to what we're creating in Firefly. In this case, I'm generating text. If I'm adjusting text, I'll do that directly in Express. I'll show you that in a moment. But these are more in line with things I'd like to talk about. An example that I thought of ahead of time was this one. Pentagram, obviously one of the biggest branding agencies in the world, defended its use of generative AI. They used Midjourney. They should definitely be using Firefly instead, but that's a conversation for another day. Um, this is a really good article for me to react to. So, how might I go about creating this on Instagram for stories? Friends, let's think about what is the path of lesser resistance. I'm tempted to hop back over to my phone. Let's look and see what Pentagram has posted recently on Instagram. Okay, I'm not seeing the article, but I bet I will find it. There it is. Okay, so this is the post where they talk about it. If you notice, I had already have this saved. I love how they explain this. And then I'm also curious to see what people say in the comments. This is going to be very polarizing because we have lots of creatives that are on board with AI and we have other creatives that are not on board with AI. I like to think that I sit somewhere in the middle because I like technology, but I also care deeply about those who make a living from creativity or as creatives, that still be something that is not just generated in a single button, right? So I might go ahead and share this to my story. Let me show you what we're doing. Okay, I'm going to find this existing post. So I'll find one of the slides that I like. Let me go through. There are 7. I love that. We'll click the share icon and then we'll click the add to story. Okay. So I'm going to click done. What I could do here is I could open up the text field and say, interesting that at Pentagram, you know, make sure they're tagged. I'll explain that in a moment. Is defending its use of AI for branding. Okay. I'm just friends, I'm just doing this on the fly. Let me just sample a color in here. Let me just do this one down here. Okay. And then I might resize this slightly. And so what I'm doing is I'm actually, in this case, I'm repurposing something that they had already posted. I could add a little arrow. I love little arrows like this. So I do like black arrow. Whoops. Black arrow. Okay, we might have this just point down here. Okay, and then I do another little hack. I take a screenshot of what I'm working on. So I could go ahead and post this. I'm not going to because this is just a demo. But then I take the screenshot that I just made a second ago. Let's go back here. Right there. And let me show you this little trick. When you click the 3 dots in the corner and click the draw feature, sample the color and hold your finger down and it will make the entire story that color. I do this so that there's continuity between the first story and the second without having to overdo it. So I actually believe, blah, 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 blah. Might center it, take more time to actually put my opinion here. Maybe I'd link to a blog post. Maybe I'd link to a remixable template if I was talking about something related to what I've created in Express. That's a quick little demo of how you can share news and quickly give your opinion, quickly react to a story. Friends, I'm coming back to the chat. I know we didn't work as much in Adobe Express for that specific example, but again, I want you thinking about, how could I take a current event and in 2 minutes or less share it? Because there might be people in my audience that also find it interesting, but also inject your opinion. This has a compounding effect on how we think of you. You stay on our radar as a personal brand. Content is what you say. Personality is the unique way that you deliver that content. And that's a little workflow that I think is really useful. Another thing that's kind of wild that I do, I love hopping into stock for ideas. So I'll look at photos or I'll look at video and I'll just click view all and I'll just come in here and I just look and I think about how I could use one of these assets to tell a story or almost as like a visual prompt. There are really high quality assets from Adobe Stock that are directly integrated into Express. I love this design, for example, right here. So I might start with this as a prompt and say, friends, I'm packing up and I'm headed to Colombia, which is true. I am in Salento right now, the town that inspired the movie Encanto. Here we go. So what we could do, I'm going to go 1080 by 1920, and I'm going to resize. And do you see those little rainbows top and bottom, friends? This is Firefly at work with our generative expand feature. And I love this feature because we're no longer constrained by the parameters of an existing asset. So you think about it for branding, some of those branding examples I showed you earlier, personal brand photography. This is just like, it's just making some really interesting opportunities for us. So, friends, that might be an asset that I just took from stock that could start a story. And then I could sample those colors in the way that I showed you a moment ago to keep that continuity, that visual style consistent. Okay, that's our React. We have one more initial to cover. This is a quick one. I'm going to throw to our friend Lucas to reveal why.
We are on to the fifth story, and again, the reason why I love to use acronyms for my frameworks is it makes them so easy to remember. So we had S for showcase, we had we had S for showcase, T for teach something, O for open up, R for react to some news, Y, the last letter of our framework, Y is for you. And I don't mean you, the person creating the content or posting the story. I mean giving back to your audience. So I am speaking to you in the audience. That's the you I'm referring to with the last step of this framework. And this is all about highlighting or celebrating your audience. You might use it to celebrate a milestone that recently happened. Maybe you reached a certain amount of followers and you're excited about it. Maybe you reached something in your business that couldn't have been done without your audience and you want to celebrate that. Or maybe it can be something as simple as just sharing the love, giving thanks back to your audience, and resharing a post from someone in your community or a post that you want to shout out and give attention to. So Y is for you. Those are our 5 stories, and using these, you can really pretty easily show up from Monday to Friday, unless you want to add something in on the weekends too, or just get more casual with those. But this is a pretty solid structure for showing up from Monday to Friday with an individual and unique story every single day. And like I said, you don't have to stick to the exact order. Monday doesn't have to be showcase. Tuesday doesn't have to be teach something, even though it does sound pretty good. Got that alliteration going on. You can feel free to shuffle those up. STORY is just a handy way to remember it for your stories.
I love it. The why is for you. And this is such an important reminder that Lucas has highlighted that we really need to keep this about our audience. And so you're never going to fail when you take a moment to highlight someone in your world. I do this. I've got courses, a membership. Like anytime I want to spotlight someone, uh or if ever I'm at a loss for content ideas, I always go back to the why. So let's highlight what he's got here in this remixable template. Friends, if you're joining us late, don't worry, you're still on time. There's a remixable template link in the description of this video that'll bring you to this template. We're on the final initial of story, the acronym. Here we're highlighting content, feedback, a testimonial. Oh my gosh, one of the most important things that you can ask a happy client for is a testimonial. I actually hadn't planned on showing this. I know we talk a lot about Instagram, but I'm going to hop just quickly over to LinkedIn. I'm actually logged in as my client right now, so this won't actually work. But LinkedIn is an amazing place. If I actually go and look up my profile, I can do that. So here we go. When I click over here and we scroll down to what I think is the most important part of your LinkedIn profile is recommendations. Okay, given and received. I have 86 recommendations. So you can know right here that when someone says something nice to me, I go, thank you. But the next thing I say is, wait, can we connect on LinkedIn? And could you take a few extra seconds to put that testimonial on my LinkedIn profile where it will live forever? Okay. Because this is a testimony, I can't make this up, right? Whereas if a testimonial is on the website, you think to yourself, well, couldn't I just like write that? Yeah, you could, but you can on LinkedIn, right? It has everyone's profile photo, everyone's title. This is the first place that I send clients, that I send conference organizers, and any of the jobs that I'm trying to get. So, friends, I know we talk a lot about Instagram, we're talking about stories. You could then repurpose these testimonials over on Instagram, where you could be creating this in Adobe Express to keep it branded. So I recently did an Express workshop for creative mornings. We're going to take this testimonial. Let me just decrease the size on this. Let's make it actually a little bit bigger. There we go. And I might shorten this. I could paste this over. I mean, that's kind of long. So what I might do is actually go back to ChatGPT and say, shorten this without changing the words to 1 to 2 sentences. Okay. It might change a few little words. There we go. So like, help me find the most important part of that testimonial. Might have been a better prompt, but that feels like a better length to consume. I'm using my brand here, which I have set up in Adobe Express. Obviously, I'm Phil Pallen. Of course, I have a brand in Adobe Express. Check it out. That's actually a color palette I added by accident, but my brand colors are right down when doing a demo. But these are my colors, my logos, my fonts, headers and bodies, and all my templates and assets. Use the assets here for all of my brand photography. So let me just pop that down there, let's say, and let's say this was a testimonial for me, and we'll pop that right there. And I might go back to LinkedIn and just grab their name, which I can just copy and paste if it's not gonna. There we go. And I think you get the idea. Pasted twice. There we go. Friends, that testimonial took me about a minute to carry over from LinkedIn, where it lives forever. This is an example of why. Okay, I guess this is actually more me, but whether it's a testimonial of you, it could be a program, it could be something someone has said about you. Try to think about, like, always bring it back to your audience, which I really actually didn't do a good job of in this example. This might be better for S Showcase, but the functionality is still the same. Whether it's a text snippet, it could be resurfacing someone else's post. Oh, that dog is cute. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll go over here to stories, and I'll show you this very quickly because we're almost out of time. So let's just go. And I might go, what inspires you? What inspired you today? Okay. What inspired you today? And then I'm going to quickly, because we have literally 1 minute, go to the question sticker. I can never find it when I need it, but it's right there. Okay. And I could just put a little emoji here, question. And there we go. Or I could just write the text. You get the idea. I'm moving fast. But this, I could then post this, get the answers, and then put those answers back in my story. Sometimes what I'll do is, let's say Lucas replies to my story. I will go and find a post that Lucas did recently. That's not a carousel. That's just a static image. This is a good one. I could post this to my story and then put his answer right beside, even if it's a screenshot as a comment or from that poll. I think you get the idea, right? And that's just a way that you can elevate your own audience in a really nice, exciting way. It doesn't have to just be about you or I, the creator. It can be about you, the viewer, the audience, the subscriber. Friends, Val says that was such a fabulous stream. Phil, thank you, Val. Thank you for everyone who hung out. I hope you learned something new. Lucas was upset to miss our stories discussion because he loves stories just as much as me, but he said, Phil, tell them about the hot air balloon. And honey, I delivered. Thank you for hanging out with us. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We hope you learned something new. Check out our past episodes of Social Media Makeover. Thank you to Paco and the team and everyone who streamed today. You did a great job. We'll see you back tomorrow, I think it is. Until then, see you later.